What's going on, guys? Kaiga here. I keep getting messages like this. This was on my Discord, link down below, saying some frustrations about Ainz, the new Wind collaboration character. And I want to talk about metas in this game. We're going to start from the beginning, when the game launched, and work our way till now, talk about the different metas, and then we're going to talk about ways to beat Ainz. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so first I'm going to read off the actual message itself, and then I'm going to do the idea that I had. So, I don't mean to beat a dead horse and state the obvious, but I've managed to stay alive on my server against the few people who have been focusing on Ainz. I pumped up my block stat and made a second holy team I can swap to without Albedo and Butterfly, so I don't pump up their break with my shield. I also switched to Judge from Priest and don't use Yellow Thundersoul in Crystal Battlefield when I know the Ainz guys are in there. It keeps me from getting one-shotted at least. I wish there was a solid counter for Ainz, cause he is wrecking me. I have a Wind setup with Ainz in it myself, but I love my holies and would rather use them to switch to Wind. I've spent so much money on Holy Squad for one fairy to come in and wreck my setup. So first we're going to focus on this last line right here, one unit coming in and wrecking your setup, and then we'll talk about Ainz himself. So starting from the beginning, so you're familiar with the Track of Fate banner that you will use the yellows on, and we have the Elemental Link, which the only time you're ever going to touch this one is if you have the monthly, the $5 monthly pack that gives you one summon a day from here. And what's interesting here is these kind of tell you a little bit about the fairies that are in the game. For example, the yellows right here, when the game launched, there were two, me and the community call them generations, which you'll see down here. Chestnut Rose, Camellia, Candok, and Primrose are Gen 1. They have the highest percentage 6-star. Then you'll see the 0.125, Anatheria, Hydreiga, Balloonflower, and Marigold, which are Generation 2. Then we have Generation 3, Rose, Viola, Dandelion, and Daisy. I believe we're about ready for them to add Gen 4 fairies to this. And the Gen 4 fairies are in the Elemental Link, which are Ixoria, Lavender, Hyacinth, and Foxglove. Now, what's interesting, like I said, I believe they should add the 4th gen here and the 5th gen here. And this kind of tells you how old some fairies are. And they do have to effectively make newer effects. Even all the way up here to the 4th generation of fairies, the only one with a passive is Foxglove. Because she was the last one in the Generation 4. I think Hyacinth is technically Gen 3 over in SEA, but for most versions of the game, Hyacinth is Generation 4. There will be some small differences like that, like the Holy Fairy Mistletoe came out on most regions before Southeast Asia got it. There are small differences like that, but for the most part, we're about even now as far as fairies for all versions of the game. Now, next I want to talk about the echoes. And we have the 4 down here, the elemental, fire, water, wind, and earth, and then we have holy. The main difference here is a level 1 fire required, or any of the 4 elements require 2 fairies, whereas a holy only requires 1. When the game launched, there were the 2 generations of elemental fairies and 2 holy fairies, that being Twin Lotus, that gives you bonus damage in PvE, and Licorice, who does a monstrous 4-second stun in PvP. Obviously, the go-tos for those game modes. So you would have 3 fairies of whatever element you're doing, plus twins for PvE, or Licorice for PvP. As things get added, builds change. More fairies obviously get added, but what I want to talk about now is things didn't really pop off or make a big splash until level 4s came out, or level 5 for Holy, that gave a bonus effect for the element. Everything up to this point gave an extra stat, and you'll see an extra stat here as well, but everything past this is just bigger numbers on the bottom stats. You'll see each one kind of tells you where they want to go. Fire has crit damage. So, but each element, as we'll see later on, they start adding more things that don't actually go with that. So ends up being 2 directions for fire. There's 2 directions for water, 2 directions for wind, 2 directions for earth. And we're about at the spot where Holy has 2 distinct directions. So as far as the level 4/level 5 for Holy effect, fire does an AoE damage every 24 seconds, guaranteed crit. Water does do AoE damage for a percent of the a percent of your HP, and for every 1 hit you get an attack boost. Wind does the AoE damage and increases your attack and defense for 8 seconds. Can be stacked up to 5 times, and gives you a shield for 4 refreshes every 40 seconds. Same target, all skill effects once every 20 seconds. So this right here, if there's multiple enemies, let's say you're in top league, if you attack each person once, you can immediately get 3 stacks of this attack and defense boost. But 20-second cooldown before you can do it again. Earth, this is one of the bigger ones that totally change how the echo works. Whenever you hit someone, you put a stack of a road that does damage over time and gives you movement speed. And once you're at 5 layers of a road, you get pierce rate. And then Holy, which people definitely complained once this got added to the game. Every Holy that was out in the game was very, very strong. When dealing damage, you deal extra damage at the same time, plus 10% damage. The target's HP restoration efficiency minus 50%, and they lose 5% damage, lasting 8 seconds. If they're at 50% or lower HP, turns off their dodge and reduces their movement speed. Same target, skill trigger once every 12 seconds. So, and like I said, top league, you can hit each individual person and trigger all of it each individual time. And for that each person, it's 12 seconds before you can do it again. Tons of damage. Turns off dodge once every 12 seconds. Anti-heal for 8 seconds, so 2/3 of the time. And sorry, that's the minus the minus heal and minus damage is 8 seconds out of 12, and the anti-dodge movement speed reduction is 3 seconds out of 12. So really big, powerful effects. And this really changed how your builds worked, because as you see, you need to have all 4 deployed plus 1 on the bench of this type. So it kind of forces you into one build. So at the beginning, you could have 2 echoes. For a while, you could still do 2 echoes, 3 of one element, and a holy. But then once we got to the point where your big overarching effects require a full set plus 1 on the bench, it kind of forces you into a build, which was unfortunate for a long time. It's only in the past 6 months or so that they've added enough fairies with enough different types of effects that there's really, if you just say I'm playing holy, there's 2 types of holies that you could say that you're doing. Same with each of the elements. The only one, we have a burst water and a tank water. We have a crit fire and a brawler fire. Things like this. Now enter the collaboration fairies. First collaboration, we had Diablo, Rimuru, and Milim. Milim is the main one that gets used to this day. Still a powerhouse. That's an interesting thing. Was released last year. Early last year, I believe. And it's still relevant to this day. Powerful unit. Hasn't been power crept. Has a 630 block, which is going to be something that I'll focus on as we get later into the video. But the other 2 just really didn't do much. It seems like there's usually at least 1 dud per collaboration. Second collaboration, we have Urza that got 2 buffs to make sure she sees play, and she still does with her 660 break. Natsu, with his 600 crit, sees play if you do use fire in PvP. He is a premier fire PvP unit. He is very close in effect to Anatheria. Anatheria does the anti-heal. Natsu triggers the execute damage at a higher percentage and just does more damage. Windy doesn't see play. If Windy gave the wind weakness, then she would see play a lot in PvE. And we'll talk about game changer ones in a minute. And for the collaboration, Ainz is seeing a ton of play for PvP, and Shaltair is seeing play for PvE. This is realistically what we want from a collaboration, especially it being the elemental ones and not the holy. They're probably going to learn their lesson, and in the next collaboration, make the holy the good one, right? Or buff Shaltair so her passive works in top league, because that's kind of what people wanted her for. There's a wording issue. She does not work in top league. Now, each element, I'm going to point out 3 fairies that were game changers when they came out. Winter Cherry, complete game changer for PvE. Whatever monster you're fighting, give it fire weakness, and then fire damage received increase. And even in PvP, her passive is a rigidity that even works in top league. Hydreigo Flames, primarily PvP, turning off dodge, high damage, and then even her basic attack, well, it's her passive, but it scales with her basic. That allows you, this is primarily for PvE options, now that in some game modes we can't change teams, whenever she does a basic, she has a chance to lower the cooldown of her skill. The only time this comes up right now is in the elemental realm, so you can use her more often, because you can't swap teams in Elemental Lord. Dahlia, her passive gives you healing, which is fine, doesn't really matter. Her main thing is her active which was made as a direct counter to gladiators and priests, which it still does that, unless the priest saves their star blessing until after, and then you're in this staring contest of who's going to use star blessing first, who's going to use Dahlia first situation. That turns all their healing into killing them effects. As of note, Hydreiga did change the meta. When she came out, PvP, people were using fire. I mean, a lot of the fairies I'm going to point out changed the meta when they came out, and people were using that element. Then we go into water. Blue Rose increases your damage at high HP, reduces incoming damage when you're at low HP. At high enough stars, the skill actually heals you to put you in those buffers. Just good for tank or damage. Lavender, we'll talk about more about him later, but even as a support player in Crystal Battlefield or whatnot, Guild War, you can put someone to sleep, walk away, or he ends up being used in a one-shot combo with Calamus, which also is a relatively new fairy, and people are still using this, and it's still working at relatively high levels. Wind, I'm not counting Ainz because we already know about Ainz. He's the most recent. Tranquil Balloonflower still is a game changer, right? The passive letting you do some weird things with your cooldowns that no one could possibly see coming. My favorite one that I always bring up is Moonslash from Gladiator. A lot of classes have anti-knock-up knockback, but not pool effects. So the Moonslash pulling them in is a hard one to ignore, and you can go Moonslash with something like Tranquil Balloonflower. People used her a lot in PvP because of this, totally changing what some classes can do. You could have a triple tornado with Judge, for example. Camellia still is a game changer in PvP. People were still using Wind up until Ainz came out. Now they obviously use Ainz with Camellia, but Camellia, Tornado, they get knocked up, so you can combo on them, and if they do ignore knock-up knockback, it just makes you deal more damage to them, which totally fine. Almond Blossom has a get out of jail free card with the passive. If you get debuffed, she'll cleanse the debuff and give you an attack boost, which, I mean, okay, sure. And then the active, which obviously does damage, high enough star level it heals you, and gives you a dodge mechanic, which ends up being a decent counter to Ainz. Gives you 60% dodge, and if she's at high enough stars, every time you trigger that dodge, you lose 10%. So you can, at max, dodge 10 attacks coming your way. Earth, we'll start with the oldest. Foxglove came in, passive, giving you crit, and is really one of the only things that reduces CC on you. It gives you 15% CC reduction. Carnation, which had a nerf a long time ago, but wasn't put in the patch notes. It used to do multiple pull-in effects. Now it only does the one, so now it doesn't do a whole lot. But when she came out, she destroyed Crystal Battlefields. There's videos of people just walking into a point, dropping Carnation, walking away, and getting 3 to 4 kills. Just a ridiculous fairy. And Birds of Paradise, this is one that I guarantee you, if your server was around when Birds of Paradise came out, it was used on you. Because 6 hits, each hit has a stun on it. So unless you have, unless you burn 2 dodges effectively, you're going to get hit and you're going to be stunned. Now, a question that's going to come up is, what about nerfs? And this is the only time on record they've done a nerf. This is March 12th, 2024. 2 fairies got nerfed, 1 got buffed. Dandelion has been improved. Her skill now directly locks and hits targets when attacking, so that it comes down on that one spot. If it follows them to a degree, and then falls down in that one individual spot. Winter Cherry, the second hit hits faster, 25% increased range. The radius of damage was way too small. And then Lavender, the big nerf. Effect has been weakened. The condition of ending slumber state has been changed from receiving 150% of attack to receiving 50% of attack. So if your attack is 1,000, they wake up when you deal 500 damage. If your attack is 1,000, 1,500 damage is what it used to be. So now you can, if you put someone to sleep, start attacking someone to the side, they get hit by some small AoEs, they're going to be woken up. Before, those small hits didn't matter and they would stay asleep. And this is the only time there was huge backlash, and it's probably never going to happen again, even with Ainz in the state that he's currently in. Now, confronting what the poster said about a new fairy coming in and totally wrecking their squad, all 12 of these fairies, including 1, 2, 3, so all 15 of these fairies, when they came out, changed the meta. So, I mean, when Winter Cherry came out, people used fire in PvE. They were using Holy, because Holy had a generic damage increase. Now we use fire and everything. This is still a thing to this day. When she came out, people only used fire because it would turn off dodge and then you could fairy spam people. As a counter, I like these fairies a lot because not everyone uses a Dahlia to this day, but in certain situations, packing a Dahlia can win you an entire match right now. All of these fairies have changed the meta when they came out, or in the case of ones like Lavender, are coming back into the meta because of a new fairy coming out like Calamus. So what do you do if your fairy does take the backseat? Let's say Ainz Wind is the best PvP setup right now. Let's ignore everything else and just say Ainz is the best. Then a lot of your holies, like Milim and Urza, can be on the bench for this 660 break, this 630 block, things like this. Or you can lean into the effects up at level 9, for elemental, and do your own wind using things like Almond Blossom, passive to cleanse some of the bad stuff, the active to give you dodges so you can dodge the full effect of Ainz and then fire back with your own Ainz. You can take classes like Gladiator or any of the Archer or Wind Chaser and save 2 dodges for Ainz and then dodge out of it. You can use Cat, even though he turns off Cat. You can preemptively use Cat to give yourself 3 dodges, so you can guarantee dodge his ability. Each element has a way to counter Ainz. Wind, as I already said, the almond blossom one. That was wind. For water, you can put them to sleep with lavender and walk away. Or one-shot them with calamus before it happens. Blue rose will help you survive what's coming in. Fire. Winter cherry. The rigidity passive will help you survive. Rose, who's not here, Rose can silence them so they can't cast it. So you can silence them so you can go on to them. Water, wind, earth, you can stun them with birds of paradise. Or primrose. There's no like defensive one. You ideally would not have foxglove because of this. Oh no, this is if you have a shield. You can bring foxglove and have the minus 15 percent debuff duration, as well as birds of paradise and primrose to stun them. Holy, you can either burst them back, and you can use your myriad of stuns and cannot move effects, or you could even do something like mistletoe and run away, and they can't chase you because even if they use a dodge to jump out of the mistletoe barrier, they get stunned, which is enough time for you to all that bad stuff to get off of you from Ainz. Every element has a way to fight it. There's even wills and generations that can fight against him. But even if he's the number one fairy right now, the meta will always shift. And that is a good thing about the game. I get asked all the time, what's the meta class? What's the class everyone plays? And I like that the only real answer to that is priest, because priest buffs everything. But it's really about that primary class that's changed all around. There are a lot of ninjas because that's the newest class, but there's tons of gladiators, lancers, there's few cannons, but everything else is pretty well received. Let me know what you guys think down below. Is Ainz unbeatable? What's your counter for him? Till next time.